morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, esteemed partners and friends. This morning, I'd like to have a conversation. And the conversation is really centered around adaptation infrastructure with purpose. Cities and the built environment as a platform for action, empowerment, and dignity. It is my great privilege to address you today, both in my capacity as a chair for the Africa Regional Network at the World Green Building Council, the CEO of the Kenya Green Building Society, and a city legislator here in Nairobi as an MCA. What this does is allow me to tackle this topic at a subnational or city level, at a national level, and more broadly, as an African. And so, in setting the scene and understanding the infrastructure challenge in Africa, we need to really understand what is happening in Africa. And so, as a starting point, I'd like to say, Africa is a growing continent. We have the youngest population in the world, rapidly urbanizing, and these young people are going towards cities in search for opportunities. What this means is the receiving urban centers are grappling with an overburdened infrastructure. It also means that the spaces that used to occupy fewer people are now having more people occupying these spaces. Often, these young people with little to no resources find themselves squeezing into low-income neighborhoods to make ends meet as they realize their potential. And what this means is we are facing urban sprawl, and we are also grappling with inadequate planning. And so when we think about adaptation, it's not just a theoretical concept for Africa. It is a pressing reality as we're witnessing more frequent climate impacts. Recently, we had flooding across different parts of the country, and this was a situation that affected several parts in Africa. And for a lot of countries globally, maybe this is a theoretical article that you're reading about. But in Africa, it's the difference between life and death. It is also being robbed of or being stripped of your dignity as you lose your home and your livelihood. And so what does adaptation for infrastructure mean in practice? Adaptation for infrastructure is about ensuring our buildings, our roads, our water systems, and energy grids are built, designed to, at the core of it, factor dignity for Africans. Separately, factor prosperity for businesses. And lastly, ensure that we respect nature as we create the cities we want to thrive in. And it also involves shifting from reactive, which is often the nature of the global south. We react to things. And instead, taking a moment to pause, plan, design, and intentionally respond to these rising challenges. And why is it important for us to invest a little more of our time in adaptation? It's important because as a growing continent, this is important for national and subnational governments to understand that as cities grow, the pressure will intensify, and subnational governments will be at the forefront of tackling these issues, as Her Excellency Gladys Wanga mentioned earlier. So it means we need to upskill these local governments to understand how they can respond to these challenges. It also means that we need to be better prepared and work with partners who can help us address these issues, not as an afterthought, but as a collaborative mechanism that ensures lives are maintained, livelihoods are not lost, and our cities are not affected. Second, it also looks at reducing future costs. It is estimated about $100 to $200 billion will be lost or gained when it comes to climate effects in Africa by 2050. In Kenya, we lost 700 million shillings because we did not act when we were meant to act. 700 million unaccounted for is something huge from an impact perspective, because it means you're now having to grapple with 700 million in a gap and try to manage how you can raise that money to now recalibrate your spending. And lastly, I think what's important is the climate conversation in Africa is very much a development conversation. What this means is dignity is at the heart of the climate conversation when it comes to Africa. And this therefore means here we're trying to recalibrate social equity, because climate impacts, unfortunately, do affect the urban poor, the most, in fact. So if we don't think about our people, if we don't think about empowering our people, we will not have those cities which thrive. We will not have those businesses which thrive, and we definitely will not have the capacity to reel in the finance that we need. It demands that our governments must be forward-thinking. It demands that our leaders have to have a plan. Why do we build the way we build? What are we trying to achieve? Are our cities cities of opportunity? Our cities cities for life, for families? If we have strategic thinking in how we plan our cities, then we will be able to recalibrate our approach in reeling in investment and having the right legislation to push this forward. We also need to understand that to make this work, investors are keen to understand what policies do you have integrated that rely on or focus on adaptation. It is only if we have the policies in place that investors will have the confidence to unlock those opportunities with us so that we can create those green jobs and the skills that will ensure our young people have a place to grow within Africa and not migrate to other continents. And so when I think about the work that the Global Global Center for Adaptation is doing, what I see is a real opportunity here in co-developing adaptation strategies for cities, because adaptation doesn't happen in isolation. Cities are a fantastic opportunity for adaptation strategies to be implemented. I also see an opportunity, if cities are seen as portfolios, we can look at building resilience as a mechanism of developing bankable projects with a focus on the assets found within cities, using frameworks like APEC Cities by the World Bank or LEAD. We also have a real opportunity for each subnational government in Kenya to pilot an urban project that could be showcased to the world, whether it's COP, whether it's the Expo City, Cities in Action Forum, name it. The world is watching, and Africa needs to deliver. Lastly, I also see a huge potential in knowledge sharing and market transformation. I'd like to say we don't lack technical expertise in Africa. We don't. We have it right here. What we lack, though, is relational expertise. How are we translating what we're doing in a way that investors can understand that we are doing the work, but we need requirements to make those projects bankable? I also think that there's a huge gap in governance and coordination. We need to understand that the national government can't work alone. You need to collaborate at national and subnational level so that you can deliver opportunities to private sector, unlock green jobs for the youth, and of course, realize that communities are at the heart of buy-in. So we need to be talking and walking this journey with those communities. I see that already there's a lot being done. Nairobi and Homa Bay have gotten leadership opportunities and have demonstrated this. Nairobi has Africa's first green government office that was recognized at COP28. Homa Bay got East Africa's first green affordable housing project. We have leaders right here. We need to understand how we can leverage that to create the opportunities we need. And as we continue this journey, I need to highlight key takeaways that you could think about. Adaptation must have and must be nationally backed. But remember, ultimately, it needs to be locally driven. And while international frameworks and financing play a key role, adaptation efforts need to be rooted in local contexts and communities. Collaboration is essential. No single government can work alone. And no single entity can thrive or walk in this successfully without us collaborating. If you invest now, you will save much more later. And that means the difference between doing the extra mile today is definitely going to save you billions of dollars in future. In closing, I think we stand at a pivotal moment. The need for adaptation infrastructure is clear, and the opportunities to create resilient and inclusive sustainable cities are within our grasp. The question is, two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and I'd like to ask, will you take the road less taken, the road of opportunity, which demands you bring your best, or will you choose to do the same thing and get the same results, losing lives and livelihoods in the process? Two roads diverge in a yellow wood. I choose to take the road less traveled by, and that will make the difference. The question is, will you? Thank you.